Have you ever heard of a place that exists in stories but vanishes when you try to find it? Not a mythical underworld, not a city in the clouds, but an actual valley, a physical location spoken of by elders, mapped in old tales, yet missing from the land itself. Across North America, indigenous oral traditions sometimes describe valleys so vivid that they include the types of trees, the colors of the stone, the way the light falls in summer, only for those valleys to be untraceable on any modern map. Sometimes these places are tied to warnings: do not enter during the red moon, or leave before the first frost, because those who stay are said to vanish with the place itself. Other times, they're remembered as lush and fertile, a land of game and shelter, a place where ancestors once lived before it was taken away by the earth, the sky, or forces that have no name. The phenomenon is not isolated. From the Pacific Northwest to the Appalachian Mountains, from the Great Plains to the arid Southwest, there are accounts of valleys disappearing, some swallowed by water, others buried under rock, and some simply gone. In this episode of Untold Secrets of Ancient America, we're going to explore the stories, the patterns, and the theories, both ancient and modern, about the Vanishing Valleys. Because if these places never existed, why are their descriptions so detailed, their boundaries so precise, and their locations spoken of with the certainty of a place you could walk to in a day? And if they did exist, where are they now? Let's begin with the stories themselves, because the words of the past are often the only map we have. Among the Lakota, there is a story of a green basin called Wichapi or Wichahe, the Valley of Stars, where the ground shone at night with glints like crushed quartz. According to the tale, the valley was entered through a narrow pass between two hills shaped like buffalo humps. Hunters knew it as a reliable refuge, but one day, when a party returned from the hunt, the pass was gone, replaced by a sheer cliff. They could see the same mountains, the same sky, but no entrance, no valley. In the Pacific Northwest, Salish-speaking peoples tell of a valley where trees grew upside down, their roots reaching toward the sky. This wasn't a trick of the eye. Elders describe entire groves with branches buried underground and roots exposed like wooden antlers. The location was said to lie between two river bends that no longer exist. In the Southwest, a Hopi narrative speaks of a place called Palatquapi, the Red City, said to lie in a deep, fertile canyon surrounded by sheer walls of red sandstone. It was a refuge during times of great flood, but after the last people left, no one could find the way back. In the Appalachians, Cherokee stories mention valleys where the sun seemed to set twice in one day, once over the ridgeline, and then again, behind a hidden horizon within the valley itself. And here's the strange thing. Explorers, settlers, and even early government surveyors sometimes recorded hearing about these places from different tribes miles apart, with details that matched. It's one thing for a culture to have a sacred location that can't be entered. It's another for multiple cultures to describe nearly the same place, with the same geographic features, and agree that it cannot be found anymore. Now, there's a practical side to all this. Landscapes change, and North America is far from static. We know of massive floods, like the Missoula floods that reshaped entire regions in a matter of days. We know of earthquakes, landslides, volcanic eruptions, and glacial retreats that buried valleys, shifted rivers, and altered coastlines. In Alaska's Valley of 10,000 Smokes, created after the 1912 Nova Rupta eruption, entire new landscapes formed in weeks, and a place that had been open could easily have been buried. Imagine this happening 1,000 or 10,000 years ago. There'd be no written record, just the memory of what once was. But there's another layer here, something more elusive: human memory itself. Oral histories are often treated by outsiders as stories in the fictional sense, but in indigenous traditions, they are maps, mnemonic devices that encode geography, ecology, and seasonal cycles. If a valley disappears physically, the story doesn't vanish. It becomes a record of absence. The thing is, when you read early anthropological collections of these oral accounts, you sometimes find descriptions that could match real valleys in real locations, except when you try to plot them, they overlap with places where nothing like that exists. Some researchers suggest misremembering, but this fails to explain the sheer specificity. Others argue that these valleys might still exist, just hidden, perhaps on private land, behind impassable terrain, or in regions swallowed by forests or swamps since the stories were first told. And then there's the stranger idea that these valleys are not simply gone, they move. Not in the sense of shifting tectonic plates, but in the sense of appearing only at certain times or to certain people, which brings us into the realm of the unexplainable. This is where the conversation gets strange. In multiple traditions, vanishing valleys are not just lost, they are protected, sometimes by spirits, sometimes by curses, sometimes by the will of the land itself. Among the Cree, there's a notion that certain valleys are sleeping, closed off from the human world until they are needed again. In Navajo tradition, there are hiding canyons that shift in and out of this world when danger is near. And the Iroquois speak of Ononhuaroya, the hidden valley of renewal, where time flows differently and those who enter return decades later to find the outside world changed. Now, from a modern perspective, this sounds like myth, layered with metaphor. But then you hear about people who claim to have experienced something similar. A 19th century trapper in the Rockies wrote about stumbling into a lush valley filled with wild horses, only to find, when he returned with other men, that the path leading there was gone. A surveyor in the 1880s described a gorge filled with strange basalt columns like organ pipes in a location that to this day cannot be matched with any known canyon. And even in the 20th century, hikers have reported strange moments of walking through a mist or bend in the trail and seeing an unfamiliar, enclosed valley before it fades. Science might file these away as tricks of memory, shifts in light, or simple misnavigation. But what if these accounts are pieces of the same puzzle that oral histories have preserved for centuries? There are those who suspect these valleys might be tied to what some call geographic anomalies, places where magnetic fields or geological features could distort perception, compass readings, even the sense of space itself. And then there's the most unsettling possibility, that these are not just valleys that have disappeared in space, but in time, that to enter them is to step briefly into another era, one that no longer aligns with our own. So, what do we make of all this? If you strip away the supernatural and focus on the human aspect, vanishing valleys are still a kind of sacred geography, reminders that the land is not a fixed backdrop, but a living, changing force. In the ancient Americas, knowing the land wasn't just about survival, it was about identity, law, and spiritual order. A lost valley wasn't just an inconvenience, it was the removal of a chapter from the cultural map. In many traditions, these disappearances are framed as warnings that the earth can hide what it wishes to protect or take away what humans have abused. In others, they are promises that such places still exist somewhere, waiting to return when the balance is right. And here's the thing. Whether they are products of massive geological change, echoes of real landscapes hidden by time, or something beyond our current understanding, the persistence of these stories tells us they matter. They are proof that even in an age of satellites and drones, there are still blank spots, not just on our maps, but in our collective memory. And maybe, just maybe, that's the point. Because a land without mystery is a land we take for granted, and a people without mysteries to pursue are a people who have stopped listening. Somewhere, in the folds of mountains, in the mist between ridges, a valley might still be waiting. And if you ever find yourself in a place that feels unfamiliar, yet strangely known, where the air is still, the light is different, and the path behind you seems to shift, remember the stories of the vanishing valleys, and remember that some doors, once found, may never open again. Even in the age of satellites, drones, and precision mapping, there are still places that seem to slip through the net of human knowledge, like water vanishing between stones. Modern archaeologists, adventurers, and even government agencies have tried to trace the locations described in these oral histories, only to encounter an uncanny pattern. The land seems to resist being fixed to coordinates. Expeditions to certain described valleys report GPS malfunctions, strange cloud formations, and sudden weather shifts that make drone imagery useless. Some explorers tell of trails that loop back on themselves with mathematical perfection, as though the land itself were designed to be unfindable. In other cases, satellite photos reveal valleys that perfectly match descriptions from tribal elders. But when expeditions arrive, they find nothing but ordinary terrain. No ruins, no unique plants, no unusual stones, almost as if the valley can choose when to reveal its true nature. In more conspiratorial circles, whispers emerge of withheld cartography, maps that mark locations in military archives but not on public charts, implying that someone already knows where some of these valleys are and is keeping the knowledge locked away. In the oral histories, the valleys themselves are sometimes personified, spoken of as beings with will and intention, guardians of the ancient world who retreat when the modern world draws near. Elders say that if the valleys wish to be found, they will call you perhaps in a dream, or through an animal guide, or even by letting you take a wrong turn that leads to a place you've never seen before. There are even modern testimonies, few but chilling, of hikers and hunters who claim to have stumbled into a valley filled with ruins, strange statues, or plants they couldn't name, only to leave and be unable to retrace their steps. Their stories often end with a single, haunting line. It was there, until it wasn't. And so, in the 21st century, the hunt for the vanishing valleys continues. Not just in the dense forests, high plateaus, and deep canyons of the Americas, but in the hidden corridors of the mind, where ancient places linger, waiting for the right seeker to arrive. For some, the search is a matter of history. For others, it is a test of belief. And for the valleys themselves, if they are listening, it may simply be a game that has been played for thousands of years.